Todd Blanche's confirmation to become the next Attorney General appears to be in so much jeopardy that he's resorting to Trump's usual playbook of quid pro quo, this time with Alaska. My name is Dina Doll with the MeidasTouch Network. Let's get into this. Now, Todd Blanche's confirmation hearings were a disaster for Todd Blanche because of the very many things he has done. Kind of recap some of the biggest in a little bit. But let's talk about what will happen. What will happen if he gets out of the Senate Judiciary Committee? I mean, first of all, they delayed a vote on whether or not he can even get out of that committee because of how difficult that in itself has become, in particular because of Cornyn and Tillis. I mean, wouldn't it be ironic if Cornyn stopped and prevented Trump from getting his pick, his former personal attorney, probably current personal attorney, from getting the pick? But either way, let's say he does get out of committee. Then, of course, the full Senate votes on it. And the Republicans have such a slim majority that Senator Murkowski becomes a key vote. And Todd Blanche knows this, and Trump knows this. And they have traded votes before, right? If you remember last summer, she was willing to finally vote for this awful bill that cut Medicare and rural hospitals because it included a mandate to sell leases for oil drilling in Alaska, like really disturbing stuff, that she was willing to trade healthcare for Americans across the country for more drilling in a time of increased climate change. But now this seems to me maybe even worse, not only on her part, but especially on who's going to supposedly become the number one lawyer in the country, because this doesn't smell very good. So Alaska was in a lawsuit with the federal government since 2014. This lawsuit has been going on. They sued the federal government over the construction of the port in Anchorage. They had said that the federal government basically committed fraud by not finishing the project or the way the project went on, and they didn't uphold their end of the bargain, let's say. So Trump defended this in his first term, right? I mean, it started in 2014. He became president literally 6 years after this litigation started. There was plenty of time at that point for there to be discovery, analysis on the law and the facts, but he didn't step in and decide right away that this had no merit. No, he kept that litigation going. The DOJ under Trump's first term kept that litigation going. But now, on July 7th, right in the middle of what's going to be happening or whether or not he becomes the Attorney General, Todd Blanche flies to Alaska himself to announce the federal government is going to be paying a settlement of $180 million in this lawsuit. Now, first of all, settlements happen all the time. But the timing of the settlement, his reasoning behind the settlement, and the fact that he personally had to go to announce the settlement feels and is so corrupt, especially when this is about somebody who's supposed to defend our laws, prosecute crimes like corruption, like quid pro quo. Take a listen to what Todd Blanche had to say about why he decided to suddenly settle this lawsuit. Take a listen.
And what became clear to us is that this was a fight that didn't need to happen. This was a litigation, this was a dispute that didn't need to happen. There's no dispute about the facts. This wasn't about whether something happened or didn't happen. There's no doubt that this was a project that was not done successfully or appropriately. This was just a question about how to divvy up and who needed to owe the money or not owe the money about all the mistakes that were made. So the settlement that we agreed to today, that we entered into, ends what's been a 12-year dispute. It's my pleasure. When President Trump took office a year and a half ago, he made clear that he wanted money going back to the states. He wanted to vitalize the economies of our states, and that very much includes one of our most important states of Alaska. So I want to thank the folks behind me. The governor was actively involved in the negotiations, the mayor as well, in the past several days and weeks to get this settlement done.
Blanche makes a personal visit, makes it clear that Trump and the DOJ is behind Alaska. He talks about the fact that supposedly there's no facts in dispute. I mean, if that were the case, you wouldn't think this litigation would have gone on this long. But let's say there are no facts in dispute, because that does sometimes happen. Then it is a matter, of course, about the law. And certainly there had to have been a dispute about the law, because if this was some sort of slam dunk and there was no facts in dispute and no dispute in the law, then did the Department of Justice literally just commit fraud themselves by wasting time and energy and taxpayer money trying to defend a lawsuit all of these years, including under Trump 1.0? So it's so disingenuous, as normal, for Todd Blanche to act as if there was no way to defend this lawsuit, because they did defend this lawsuit for years. And lawyers don't defend lawsuits that they think that they're going to lose. You end up spending time and money on lawyers defending a lawsuit that you're going to eventually lose anyway. Basically, the government would have been so much better off paying this $180 million soon after the lawsuit was originally filed. Instead, I can't even imagine how much they actually spent in legal time trying to defend it, only to have Todd Blanche show up in the middle of the time of his confirmation hearings to pay Alaska the settlement, and then try to tell us that this was just an easy decision. Also, the fact is he makes it really clear that Trump wants to support the states, wants to give revenue from the states. Okay, that might be true, but you do that through Congress, right? Or do that maybe in some allocated budget from the executive branch. But settling a lawsuit is different. That's not how you help give states revenue. This is a lawyer deciding that there is liability on the part of the federal government and using the federal resources to pay for it. That is very different than some sort of budget allocation revenue thing. That, to me, again, feels like malpractice and feels very similar to what he did, of course, with the January 6th slush fund. When Trump filed that lawsuit and he didn't file one motion to defend, even when the judge really opened that door wide for him to dismiss it, saying that I may not even have the authority to get it. Instead, he rushed into this $1.6 billion settlement. Of course, now we saw what the judge thought of that. She thought the whole thing was basically a fraud on the court. She said that not only did I not have discretion, you should have recused yourself because of conflict of interest. And then this idea to have an anti-weaponization fund, which really wasn't even a remedy for this privacy rights violation that he had. She was so upset about it that she had the order that she wrote filed in the New York Bar Association. That is exactly where Todd Blanche is licensed to practice law, in New York. And the New York State Bar has already said, because the DOJ has tried to implement a policy saying that current DOJ officials cannot be investigated for Bar Association violations while they are in office. The New York State Bar had already said way back in April that they didn't believe that to be true. They believed that DOJ officials had a duty to basically practice law in a professional and ethical way. The fact that DOJ wanted that to not happen just is an indication of what it is. So here you have, in the middle of these confirmation hearings, very obvious that Trump is helping Trump with Epstein, helping Trump with these slush fund, and then also yet again just committing malpractice for the American people, deciding to settle a lawsuit, really seemingly just because of the timing of it and for no other actual legal reason. My name is Dina Doll. If you haven't yet subscribed to the MeidasTouch Network, be sure to do so. And download and listen to the Mistrial podcast wherever you listen to audio podcasts. That really helps support our show. And please be sure to check out the Mistrial sponsors. So grateful for the sponsors because they don't censor what I have to say, which is so important in this moment.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.